Chip Roy is with us from the great state of Texas. Chip is a congressman, and welcome to the program. How are you, Chip?
Well, Glenn, I'm, just continuing to work through and trying to deliver for the American people, but it's getting hard. I'm with you. I'm tired of this bill right now.
Yeah, you're living the dream, brother. You are just living. Who doesn't want your job? My gosh, what a glorious, glorious, fun-filled life you must live. Tell me.
There's no sarcasm at all in what you're just saying. None at
all. Tell me, has this thing gotten better or worse?
Unfortunately, Glenn, I believe it's gotten worse. Now, we've not seen the final product out of the Senate. We don't have the text. We've got to review it. I try to be level-headed through these things. I have enormously strong and good friends in the administration who, in good faith, want to see this pass, just as you do, just as I do, just as the American people do. They want to see us move forward legislation to make tax cuts permanent, to deliver on the border funding that we need. Stephen Miller is a longtime friend I've known for 25 years. Russ Vought is a longtime friend I've known for 25 years. We've been working together in the trenches for as long as I can remember. We all want to deliver. The problem is the swamp is going to swamp. And right now we have a bill that, in my estimation, violates the House framework, but more importantly, would add significantly to the deficits. Now, we have differing views.
More than it did. More than it did, right?
By quite a bit, in my view. And look, there's going to be a debate about this, about tax cuts and revenues and all this stuff. And I get it. Baselines, CBO, all these different things. I'm just telling you, Glenn, as objectively as I can. I look at the math and I look at how you factor in economic growth, which I'm doing, factor in revenues and expenditures and what we're doing on mandatory spending, which is not enough. The fact that we're only repealing half of the Green New Scam, if we're lucky. The fact that we're continuing to allow Medicaid to go to illegals because of some arcane Senate rules. The fact that we're continuing to allow Obamacare subsidies to fund transgender surgeries. The fact that we are going to, in my estimation, have probably a couple of trillion of deficit spending in the first 4 years, which means you're going to have more interest, which means it's going to stack up, all to get savings in the out 5 years. That's not what you and I signed up for. Now, I'm looking at this trying to say, okay, the president wants the tax cuts, so do I. The president wants borders, so do I. I think the president wants us to repeal the entirety of the Green New Scam. I think the president wants us to get good reforms. Be careful, handle Medicaid appropriately and all of that for our American citizens that are vulnerable or depend on it. But we haven't delivered because the Senate has a bunch of people in it who don't want to deliver, and they're hiding behind the parliamentarian, and they're delivering us a subpar product that I didn't come to Washington to sign up for, Glenn.
All right, so let me ask you this. They're hiding behind the parliamentarian. Is that, they say there was a change in the bill because the Medicare paid to illegals, and the parliamentarian said you got to keep it in there, some arcane, rule or what. Couldn't the Senate Republicans just ignore that? Is it fair to what?
They could overrule the parliamentarian. They could make a choice if they wanted to do so. Now, then they'll say, well, some of these things take 60 votes and so forth. If they want to address this, they can address it. But the real issue here is that behind closed doors, what you know is that there are senators who don't want to make the reforms, don't want to make the changes. They're making their own policy choices based on what they want, right? You've got Lisa Murkowski right now. Instead of wanting to reform Medicaid, she wants to get a special carve-out for additional spending for people in Alaska. You've got, Tillis, you've got others. They want us to go the wrong direction when it comes to Medicaid reform. And Glenn, I got to be honest, how many times have you and I been on the phone over the last decade talking about shutdown fights on discretionary spending, every 2 years?
Oh, I know.
Countless times. Every time we have one of those fights, the people in this town say, Chip, you need to shut up because the real problem is mandatory spending. It's Medicare, Social Security, Medicaid. It's not fighting over all this stuff. You're wasting our time. I didn't think it was a waste of our time. I didn't think we should be funding weaponized government. I didn't think we should continue to jack up spending for the alphabet soup of regulations killing America. But I said, okay, guys, here we are. We're going to do this reconciliation package. We're going to reform Medicaid, right? We had to fight like cats and dogs to get the reforms and the work requirements we got out of the House. It was good, not great. The Senate, now they're working through it, and they're fighting every inch. And it got actually a little better in certain respects, thanks to Rick Scott. He's been fighting hard. Mike Lee, Ron Johnson. We got a little bit more in what's called provider taxes. But overall, we're not meeting the moment. We're not getting enough Medicaid reform. We're getting the watered down stuff on illegals. How about remittance taxes, Glenn? We passed a measure in the House to tax money going from America, from people here illegally, back to their home countries. The Senate watered it down and got rid of like 2/3 of it. It's crazy.
Why?
Because they don't like the policies, Glenn. Because here's the thing. There were banks, who came in and said, guys, this would be really hard on us if we had to enforce this policy of money flowing from our banks and institutions to Mexico and to, Colombia and places. We really need a carve out so that banks aren't going to be taxed by this. And then they said, but it would be way too burdensome on the people who come here and they're honest and they're working hard and they want to send money to their families. Look, you and I both have a heart as people of faith. We want to say, hey, I get it. You got an honest person here who's following the law. They came here legally. They want to send money back home to their country. They can still do that. They can still find a way to do that. But we're taxing. And the Senate said, no, we're not going to do it. But the biggest thing at the end of the day, deficits go up, and I didn't sign up for deficits to go up. We're not doing.
So you're not going to vote for this. You're not voting for this.
I can't. I cannot vote for this as it's currently structured. If we can come to some agreement, look, and Glenn, this is important. The president rightly wants us to find a way to get a bill done. I get that, man. I want to deliver. For 6 months, I've been busting my butt. I voted for a bill that came out of the House that I didn't like, that wasn't good enough, but I thought it was an important step. I worked to come up with a budget framework with Jody Arrington and others to figure out how to get this done and get it out of the House. I think we made progress. We did get Medicaid reforms that were good. We did get some tightening down on the Green New scam when others didn't want to do it. But we're now fighting a Senate that's watering down important stuff. And importantly, the way they concoct the tax and spend policies, overall, I can't look at this any way objectively without telling my voters, the people that sent me to Washington to represent them, the deficits will go up. Now, last point. The president and the administration will say, look, guys, don't worry about all that. We'll make it up with tariffs, and we think higher economic growth. Well, two things. Number one, on the economic growth front, we assumed growth in our bill, Glenn. We assumed 2.6% growth. Now, you might say, well, gosh, we can do 3 or 4. Yeah, but we have to do a 10-year budget. 2.6% growth is a lot higher than what we've been experiencing the last 2 decades on average. We picked a sweet spot of 2.6% growth. It is true that if we have 4% growth for a decade, we will have much more revenue. I hope that's true. You hope that's true. And if it is true, then great. It's gravy that will give us money to buy down the debt and save money and get the deficits down further. But I can't budget to 3.5% growth when we've been sitting at 2% growth. It'd be irresponsible.
So I'm with you, Chip. I'm with you. And I've said this for a long time. The Republicans are going to lose. They are going to lose. And they're going to lose because you're just not delivering for the American people what you promised you would. Donald Trump seems to be, at least he's trying. He's doing a lot of the things he promised he would do. I don't see that happening with the Republicans. So, I don't know what the midterm is going to look like. But I will tell you this: he has to have that tax cut. He's got to have it. If we don't get that tax cut, everything the Republicans have been trying to do, or the Republican voters have wanted, it's over. It's over, because the economy will spiral out of control without that tax cut. Agree or disagree?
So, I do agree that we must deliver on the tax cut, and I believe we will. When push comes to shove, there's no way that we're going to get to December and not provide an extension of the tax cuts that were so important in 2017. Now, I want to remind everybody, the corporate rates were made permanent already, right? What we're talking about dealing with is the expiration of certain personal tax issues, marginal rates, but also child tax credits, also the standard deduction, et cetera. Now, I'm not sure how, I've got different views on different ones of those policies, but overall, we want to ensure that money is staying in the pockets of the American people. We have to deliver on that. But I will tell you this, if we don't address the inflation tax, if we don't address the extent to which people are fleeing American bond markets because we're so irresponsible, then we're going to be doing a disservice to our kids and grandkids who can't afford a house. They can't buy a house because the mortgage rates are too high.
They can't afford it now, Chip. They can't afford it now.
So I think what we need to do, I'm prepared to go back to the drawing board today. I don't need to go home tomorrow or the next day. Let's get busy. We've been working on it. Let's tighten down some of the spending. Let's tweak what we've been doing and get the tax policy done and get it set. Let's go back to the House bill, for example, that we passed. It was a good, solid bill, and get the Senate to adopt it and pass it or make some modest changes. But we got to get rid of some of these ridiculous things like Medicaid for illegal aliens, pork that's going through Alaska, like specific giveaways. And, get rid of those things, go back to the House bill, make sure the Inflation Reduction Act is getting terminated, and make sure this math adds up. We'll deliver on the tax cuts, deliver on border, deliver for the president. I'm prepared to do everything to do that, but I'm not going to swallow a crappy bill because the Senate tries to jam me with it before July 4th.
I have to tell you, I don't know how it is unpopular to say, no, we're not giving illegals any Medicare. We're not. I mean, do you remember who was it that was in Congress when Barack Obama talked about Obamacare and he said, you lie? Joe Wilson, wasn't it? And everybody had a cow. Well, look at what we're doing now. Look at what we're doing. Well, look at what we're giving illegals. No, the answer is no, 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 no. And I don't understand how that is not so simple. I don't understand any Republican that doesn't understand the Green New Deal. No, no. USAID, no. Doge, cut it. Why can't they see what there is? I mean, to tell you, Chip, I'm sorry, I don't mean to take this out on you because you're one of the good guys. You've been trying to do this. We are in between a rock and a hard place. The president has to have what the president needs to get the economy going. We wait until January. You're right on top of the midterms. The president is not turning this economy around fast enough because he can't get anyone in Congress to do jack crap on anything. You need to cut the frickin' spending and the waste and the garbage. And I tell you, I am with Elon Musk 100%. 100%. You are one of these weasel Republicans who just go along and just be like, you know what, we're going to add another $5 or $6 trillion to our debt. I'm done. And Elon has said, I will, if it's the last thing I do, I will make sure none of these people get reelected. That's not going to be good. It's not going to be good for the Republic, let alone the Republican parties. But you know what? I've had enough. And I think the American people have too.
Glenn, I can just tell you this. July 4th is obviously Friday, Independence Day, 249 years ago. And we always celebrate it. We celebrate their courage. And we celebrate Lexington and Concord. And we celebrate all that they stood for. We celebrate the men that stormed the beaches in Normandy. And we celebrate all of the great courage that our men and women in uniform have done to fight to give us this country. How can I say, no, sorry, I'm going to vote for this bill because there's going to be some political pressure, when I regale the boys at the Alamo sitting there taking bullets knowing they were going to die, or those that ran into a wall of bullets in Normandy? Look, we have to deliver. We have no choice. We all agree on that. I'm sure I'm going to get labeled, any number of things that I'm not delivering on the president's agenda, that I'm jamming up a bill. Look, and I get it, and I'm not going to get defensive about it. The president wants his bill, and he's right to want his bill. But Congress has to deliver a bill worth sending him, and I'm prepared to stay here until we do. But I'm not going to vote for a bill because I'm being told I have to, because a bunch of frickin' losers who are swamp creatures who want pork and giveaways and don't have the cojones to stand up and deliver for the American people and to actually reduce spending and not hide behind parliamentarians, not hide behind tax cuts. They want to hide behind the tax cuts to tell me, and the border, to tell me, you got to vote for this bill and don't worry about the spending. No, kiss my ass. I'm going to stand up and fight for the border and the tax cuts and the spending cuts. We've got to do it.
It was very reminiscent of Daniel Boone there for just a second. It was or Davy. No, sorry, not Davy. Davy Crockett, not Daniel Boone. So thank you for that, Chip. God bless. Have a great holiday. Stand firm in what you believe in, and just keep fight. I appreciate the attitude that you have towards the president. Give the president what he needs. Fight for the president what he's asking for. But you got to fight the swamp at the same time. Have to. Thank you, Chip.